The Velcaron hegemony had ruled the Outer Rim for 3,000 years. Their ships moved like silver ghosts through the void, their weapons turned worlds to ash, and their diplomats spoke in absolutes. They had never encountered resistance they couldn't crush within a standard cycle, until they met Marcus Chen. The attack on New Harmony had been surgical. The Velcaron fleet emerged from slipspace at dawn, their particle beams carving through the colony's modest defense grid like fire through paper. 30,000 souls lived on New Harmony, farmers, engineers, families who'd traveled 800 light-years to build something new. By sunset, there were none. Marcus had been off-world, delivering ore samples to the mining station 3 systems away. When he returned, New Harmony was a graveyard. The forests his daughter had loved were nuclear glass. The school where his son had learned to read was a crater half a mile wide. His wife's research facility, where she'd been developing drought-resistant crops to feed 100 colony worlds, was nothing but twisted metal and ash. The Velcaron had left a message buoy in orbit, broadcasting in 17 languages. Unauthorized expansion into hegemony territory will not be tolerated. This is your only warning. Marcus Chen stood in the ruins of his home, his hands buried in the still warm ashes of his life, and made a decision that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The Velcaron had no concept of human grief. They were a cold-blooded species, evolved on a frozen world where emotion was a liability. They understood territory, resource allocation, and power. They did not understand what they had created when they murdered Marcus Chen's family. 6 months later, the Velcaron listening post in the Kresh system went silent. Investigation teams found it intact but empty. Its crew vanished. The station's logs showed a single human ship had docked, a modified mining vessel barely armed. The Velcaron dismissed it as an anomaly. 3 weeks after that, a hegemony cruiser patrolling the Deneb sector reported a gravitational anomaly and went to investigate. It never reported again. Search parties found debris and a single message carved into the hull of an escape pod. For New Harmony. The Velcaron High Command convened for the first time in a century. A single human couldn't threaten an empire that spanned 40 systems. It was impossible. But Marcus Chen had spent 20 years as a stellar engineer before settling on New Harmony. He understood fusion dynamics, gravitational mechanics, and the delicate balance that kept stars burning. More importantly, he understood human history, how a single person with nothing left to lose could become something the universe had never seen before. The Velcaron discovered this when their primary military shipyard, orbiting the red giant Velcar Prime, simply ceased to exist. The star had been stable for 4 billion years. In the span of 6 hours, it underwent a catastrophic instability, expanding rapidly and consuming everything in its inner system. 200 warships gone. The hegemony's main fleet production facility vaporized. Investigation showed evidence of tampering, quantum charges placed at precise points in the star's convection zone, triggering a cascade failure. It would take decades for the hegemony to rebuild their naval capacity. Marcus didn't stop. He moved through Velcaron space like a phantom, striking not at ships or stations, but at the stars themselves. He'd studied their empire, learned which systems were critical, which stars could be destabilized. His mining ship, the Reckoning, had been transformed into something unique, part laboratory, part weapon platform, part tomb for a man who no longer cared if he lived or died. The Velcaron tried everything. They sent hunter-killer squadrons. Marcus evaded them, leading them into stellar radiation storms that fried their navigation systems. They placed bounties on his head large enough to buy worlds. No one could collect what they couldn't catch. They attempted to negotiate, offering reparations, promising to leave human space untouched. Marcus sent back a single word: no. By the time Earth's unified government learned what was happening, 7 Velcaron systems had been rendered uninhabitable. The hegemony, which had seemed eternal and untouchable, was collapsing. Colony worlds were rebelling. Client species were demanding independence. The silver ghost ships that had enforced order for millennia were stretched too thin, trying to defend against an enemy that attacked the very stars. Human diplomats reached out, trying to stop what they called Chen's war. They found him in the outer dark, his ship battered and scarred, its hull covered in the names of New Harmony's dead, written in his own hand. "They need to understand," Marcus told them, his voice hollow. "Every species they've crushed, every world they've burned, someone remembers. I'm just the first to show them that stars can die too. The war ended not with Marcus's capture or death, but with the Velcaron's surrender. The hegemony fractured into a dozen smaller states, their military might broken, their reputation shattered. A single human had brought an empire to its knees by weaponizing stellar physics and an unquenchable thirst for vengeance. Marcus Chen disappeared after that, his ship jumping into the void between galaxies. Some say he's still out there, hunting the last remnants of the hegemony. Others claim he finally found peace and let himself drift into a star's embrace, joining his family in fire. But every species in known space knows his story now. They know what humans are capable of when you take everything from them. They know that humanity doesn't just fight with guns and ships, they fight with physics, with mathematics, with the very forces that govern reality. The Velcaron had burned his colony, so Marcus Chen burned their stars, and in doing so, he taught the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their absolute, terrifying refusal to accept that some things couldn't be undone, and their willingness to move heaven and earth, and stars, to make someone pay. The age of the Velcaron hegemony ended not with a treaty or a battle, but with a simple truth that echoed across 1,000 worlds. Never give a human engineer a reason to hate you. Because they understand how the universe works, and they're not afraid to break it.